Then I watched fall camp and studied, what I think Matt Miller wants his offense to look like.
Did I not turn it back on? Is that what happened there? I shut off the camera?
I'm going to request that you keep going because Coulter's going to decapitate us both.
Yeah. Sorry.
If I screw this up anymore.
Okay. Sorry. Tommy walked in, fixed one issue, which clearly was me not turning the camera back on. Okay. My apologies. Please continue.
Montana State is never going to run an offense that isn't centered upon running the football down people's throats. Mm-hmm. It's what Jeff Choate calls their DNA. It's what he wants. I think Matt Miller, with his Boise State influence, people always... I don't really know why this is. There's a misremembrance of what Boise State's offense was. Kellen Moore was so prolific because he played so much. He threw for so many yards because he started so many games. But he was never a 400-yard-a-game guy. He was a 250-yard-a-game guy. He just happened to start 60 straight games. He started every game for 4 years in a row.
Prolific accuracy, though.
But definitely, he's very accurate. But Boise State, the Statue of Liberty play that they ran to beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, that's Boise State's offense in a nutshell. Doing all sorts of crazy stuff, running all sorts of trick plays, playing multiple guys at quarterback, having all sorts of crazy packages. So it's not a surprise to me that that's what Montana State has been doing. They just haven't been able to have what is going to be the essential key to their offense this year moving forward, and that's if a guy can throw the ball down the field. If you remember from last year, when conference play started, Troy Anderson started running basically the straight-up wing tee. And he was coming off a hand injury that he suffered against Western Illinois that cost him to miss 2 starts. That's when we first saw a glimpse of Tucker Rovig, which was very bad in the first half against South Dakota State. Okay in the second half against South Dakota State, but it didn't matter because they were down 35-0 at SDSU. And then was really good against Wagner. And then retrospectively, you look back and think, okay, well, team from the Northeast Conference, none of those guys that were playing defensive back in that game would play for any team in the Big Sky. So, grain of salt. But Rovig looked okay. But against Portland State, against that flex defense, they had a very systematic game plan. They wanted to just use Troy Anderson to bludgeon Portland State. And Troy Anderson rushed for the second most yards in a single game by a Big Sky quarterback. The following week, against Eastern Washington, Troy Anderson banged up. He didn't look like himself. He got sacked multiple times, and he was not a guy that got sacked at all last year. I think he got sacked 4 times in that Eastern Washington game. He only got sacked 7 times all year long. Then the Idaho game rolls around after the bye week. They had internally been preparing Tucker Rovig to start that Idaho game, and him and Troy Anderson were going to split reps. But then that never happened because Tucker Rovig got stepped on, foot's broken. Now you got to roll with Troy Anderson. But when Matt Miller took over as offensive coordinator, they went from throwing outside bubble screens on first down to throwing 50-yard bombs on first down. And Troy Anderson, you can criticize his passing abilities all you want, but the last 6 games of the year, Troy Anderson got good enough to hit 1 or 2 deep passes a game. And if you do it, especially early, it sets the table for your entire offensive flow. Montana State hit a 50-yard bomb to Travis Johnson the first play of the game against Cal Poly. Not a coincidence that Isaiah Alphonse went on to rush for 232 yards in that game because they're on their heels the whole time after that. Now, every time you run the zone read, okay, the corner's biting, everybody's hesitating. You don't really know if it's going to be a shot. The shot down the sidelines to Travis Johnson in the Grizz game, that was what sparked the comeback in the Cat Grizz game for Montana State. So just being able to hit one of those passes made it so Montana State went from being a 25-point per game offense to a 39-point per game offense with Matt Miller coordinating the thing. And if you're scoring 40 a game running the wing tee, that's unbelievable. Now, Casey Bauman, he can throw that deep seam. He can throw that fade. I'm not sure if he can go 1, 2, 3, get through his progressions and make the proper check down. I'm not sure if he can throw the quick slant or the deep hitch or the deep out or the skinny post. I'm not sure he can throw any of that stuff. But I do know he can throw it down the field. And that's what Montana State needs. And I expect their offense now to look very similar to what it did last year, except for with a 6'7" guy throwing the ball down the field. So to answer your question, I was surprised that they actually were able to pull the trigger today, but I do think that's what's best for their program. And the fact that they pulled the trigger and picked Bauman, I was not surprised by that.
All right, here you go. Jeff Choate from earlier today on the decision.
Long story short, we did have a meeting with both the quarterbacks yesterday. We have made a decision on who our starter will be moving forward. I think that was really important in the grand scheme of things for our team. And I was really impressed with both young men because we talked about it and I said, hey, I'm not so sure that there's a body of work here, a huge body of work that's going to say this, that, the other thing. But I think that what's best for our team right now is to make a call and move forward. And both of them agreed. They both felt like, yeah, you're right, Coach. I mean, I think in fairness to Kevin Cassis and Travis Johnson and our tight ends and our offensive line, for us to start to get the reps that individual is going to need, that's going to be important. I say that keeping in mind that 3 of the 4 teams that made it to the playoffs last year from the Big Sky Conference had to use 2 quarterbacks to get there. In Weber State and Eastern Washington and even us, we had to have 2 quarterbacks to get there. And I think we're really fortunate to have 2 quarterbacks that our kids are confident in, that they trust, but we are going to move forward with Casey Bowman as the one right now, okay? And so that was a tough conversation, obviously, to have with Tucker. He handled it exactly like I thought he'd handle it. Coach, I understand. It's what's best for the team right now. I'll be ready when you need me. And so that's kind of where we're at on that. I think we had one of our best practices today. And I think that was probably part of it. Was our guy, there's not a lot of clouds hanging over it right now. Our kids know what direction we're going. They're going to be supportive of Tucker. They're going to be supportive of Casey. And we've got that decision behind us. And that's why I think it was important for us to make it after the first scrimmage and not drag it out another week. We get that out of the way. We talk about it as a family, and then we move forward. And so I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Is there anything Casey did in particular to separate himself?
I think it's not any one thing in particular. It's a lot of little things. And I think one of the little things that really became evident to me was I felt like he was starting to kind of take command of the huddle more frequently. And certainly I've made that clear that was going to be a large part of my decision was really how the players responded. And not that they responded in a negative way to Tucker at all. That's not the case. It's just that if you want to go with anything, more my gut feel.
So do you feel like that position battle is completely closed? You talked about 2 quarterbacks in the mix there, but in the next, even up to the first 3 games, do you feel like there's an opportunity for Tucker to still be in the mix there early on?
Well, we're always competing for everything that we do, but bottom line is I can't, and I told Tucker this, I can't, if I named you the starter, you wouldn't want me to say you're on a short leash. I don't think that's fair to that individual, and I think that we have to do what we need to do to support them. If there becomes a time where we feel like the best thing for our team is to make a change, obviously that's something that we'll discuss at that moment. But right now, I don't want that individual looking in the rearview mirror. I want them looking straight ahead, knowing that they've got the full support of the staff and their teammates.
You mentioned Tucker's physical skill set. There's not a lot of guys in football history that really look like that. Can you talk about his physical intangibles and some of the things that you've seen in your football career that kind of relate to him?
Tucker or Casey? Casey. Yeah, I think, the one comparison I've heard used a couple times is Joe Flacco, who has also, finished his career at the FCS level and a big guy. But I actually think Casey moves better than you think. And so, you don't see a lot of 6'6" plus guys playing quarterback, but I think he's got a unique skill set. He's a very good athlete. Mom was a collegiate Division I rower. Dad was a good athlete, and he's he was a 3-sport athlete in high school. There's a pretty cool viral video of him, shattering a backboard on a dunk. And I just think he's got a unique skill set. I think that we can do some of the +1 run game, and he's going to hold up at 235 pounds. He runs better than you think. He's certainly got the arm talent of an elite quarterback.
So there you go. Jeff Choate talking about selecting Casey Bauman as the new starter for Montana State. A couple of things there that jumped out to me, Coulter, is when talking about, is this still an open competition was the question. So, something along those lines, was it still a competition? And sort of in the vein of all college coaches, the answer is always yes. But the reality is that it's not, as far as what Jeff Choate said there. He said, this is now Casey's job, and we're going with him, and we're going to roll with him. In the future, maybe something happens where, we got to reassess that thing. But he's 1, Tucker Rovik's 2, and that's the end of the story. The decision's been made. I find that interesting because, first of all, it would have been very easy in that moment. And also in sort of even if it's untrue, kind of a life raft throwing move to Tucker Rovig, who is, was brought in to be the guy, is the older of the two players, and has once again not been selected to be the starter. It's got to be a very, difficult thing. It's certainly a very disappointing thing for him personally. It's easy enough as a head coach to say, it definitely is open. And if Tucker all of a sudden moves forward and, overtakes Casey Bauman, then that's what we're going to do. But he didn't say that. And I thought that was smart on Jeff Choate's part, because I think that there is a tendency to all of a sudden start moving the chess pieces around the board. You know what I mean? And start, okay, well, it didn't quite go the way we wanted it to go. Let's try something else. And on one hand, I think if you have a design in place that allows for, if you're a 2-quarterback system place and everybody understands that that's what you're going to do here, then that's one thing. But the pulling a guy because he's not playing as well, or you think you need something more out of the position, and all of a sudden now this guy's, feeling like, maybe he's losing some confidence and all that kind of thing, and now, Tucker Rovig comes in, who knows how well he plays or doesn't in that situation. I just thought that was to set it up as this is a final decision, and until further notice, in which we don't anticipate, this is what we're going to do. Casey Bauman's the guy. But that was pretty direct by Jeff Choate in that moment.
Montana State's quarterback position has been highly scrutinized since Jeff Choate took over. And I think that some of that has been misfounded in the narrative has become that Choate does not know how to recruit or develop quarterback talent. And to me, the biggest issue Montana State has with their quarterbacks is that they don't know how to cultivate continuity. They don't know how to make a safe spot for a kid, basically. This all goes back to the dominoes that we've talked about this forever, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Montana State's quarterback situation got thrown into complete disarray when Dakota Prukop graduate transferred to Oregon right after Jeff Choate got hired. Mm-hmm. Jeff Choate rolled the dice on a guy who had already flamed out at 2 different schools and then was at a junior college most recently in Tyler Brugman. But I also think that the 79-yard touchdown run that Chris Murray had coming off the bench against Sacramento State was perhaps the worst thing that ever happened to the quarterback position at Montana State, because that moment showed the flash of what Chris Murray can do, how unbelievably athletic and talented he was.
Right.
It also then made Tyler Brugman look over his shoulder. And people forget, Brugman became not good before he got benched because he lost his confidence. But Brugman was just fine. He was solid in Montana State's opener against Idaho. He was pretty good against Bryant and Western Oregon, which you should be, because those are 2 teams you're supposed to beat. And then he was damn good the first 3 quarters against North Dakota. And then he threw 2 fourth-quarter picks, and Montana State lost that conference opener 17-15. That UND team went undefeated in the league and went on to win the league. The Cats, in their first conference game under Jeff Choate, lost by 2. And Tyler Brugman threw 2 picks in the fourth quarter. 1 to Cole Reyes, 1 to Deion Harris, the 2 best DBs in the league that year. And then the next week, they were at Sac State, and they lose a shootout, 41-38, but Chris Murray rushes for almost 180 yards running the package stuff that they had for him. Well, now all of a sudden, you created yourself a quarterback controversy when you didn't previously have one. And now you got a 17-year-old kid in Chris Murray who is not even close to ready to play in the mix. And now you got the veteran guy who's already had it all wash away for him at both Washington State and Louisville, looking over his shoulder. And so then by the time Tyler Brugman goes 2 of 9 to start against Northern Arizona, now Murray's the real guy. You start playing back and forth. As soon as you go with Chris Murray as a starter against Weber State, Tyler Brugman's done. It's over for him. He's not coming back from that. But Chris Murray's not ready for that. So now they've been in flux. And then all of a sudden you have all this you have a quarterback in Chris Murray that's not running Courtney Messingham's offense. Now Messingham is pursuing other opportunities. Now he leaves in the offseason. Now you have you promote Brian Armstrong within. There's so much lack of continuity. They've had 4 offensive coordinators. They've had 4 quarterbacks coaches. When Casey Bauman makes his first start against Texas Tech, they'll have had 5 starting quarterbacks already in the 4th year. So there's been no continuity. The only guy that wasn't looking over his shoulder for any portion of a time was Chris Murray in 2017 because Tucker Rovig was redshirting and there was no one else in the program. I think it's going to make a difference for them to actually develop a guy. I also think that Matt Miller is a huge difference maker in this situation too, because I can tell by interviewing Jeff Choate and by just observing practices that there's just a lot more continuity and there's a lot more confidence from Jeff Choate and Matt Miller. Choate, let's be honest, I think meddled a lot in the offense the first couple of years. I think he's satisfied to not meddle in the offense with Matt Miller at the helm. And that's why I thought that Casey Bauman was going to be the guy, because I thought that was going to be Matt Miller's guy. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's, Montana State's quarterback play couldn't be more one-dimensional than it has been the last 3 years, and it couldn't have been more lacking in continuity in the total picture. So if they can figure out how to lock this in and just take the good with the bad, Casey Bauman's going to make mistakes. He's a redshirt freshman. I just think they got to figure out how to live with it and build around the kid rather than having him look over his shoulder all the time.
The thing that's interesting about this is exactly what you touched on. I mean, he's a freshman, and even though he played, a half a game or whatever it is last year, he
played one series. Troy Anderson rolled his ankle against Cal Poly right before the halftime locker room, and Casey Bauman milked the last 54 seconds off the clock. Yeah. He only threw one pass.
Yeah. But the point is that he's got 4 years to play potentially. And look, who knows what's going to happen? Everybody, around, the University of Montana thought they were set with Gretsch Jensen for the next 4 years, and then, he's one and done when you have a coaching change. Who knows how good or not good Bauman's going to be? If you haven't seen him, it won't take you long to go, oh, well, yeah, looks like the dude can play. Like you said, 6'7", can rip the football. So he's got the stuff that you can't teach. The question is, does he have the stuff that you can teach? And it sounds like some of that stuff is coming for him. But over the course of time, this is a kid who could develop into an outstanding, potentially elite Big Sky quarterback. The thing that's odd in this particular situation, though, is Montana State is ready to win now. They got the defense to win right now, a veteran group that is ready. They've been building the last several years. Their offense, in terms of what they have on the offensive line, what they have at running back, skill position players, even at wide receiver, which I think people don't appreciate how good Johnson potentially could be as a wide receiver, because they haven't had anybody to get him the ball to showcase what he could actually bring to the table on the outside. So nobody talks about the Montana State wide receivers in the landscape of the Big Sky. But really, to me, I don't know how good they are. It's a very open question. I think they could be very good if given an opportunity, and maybe he provides that. The issue is, like you said, as a redshirt freshman, he's going to have bad days. He will probably lose Montana State a football game or two over the course of the year, because that's what happens when you're a young kid. Can Jeff Choate and the staff be okay with taking those lumps for the long picture? And do they feel like they have a long picture, given the fact that this team wants to be the team that's ready to go right now for Montana State?
Well, that's the thing. I think that's why this is so much on the coaches and not on Casey Bauman, because I think that Montana State needs to do everything in their – if you're the Montana State coaching staff, you need to do everything in your power. There's two ways to negotiate the quarterback position, particularly at the FCS level. Do you want a guy that's just going to manage a game, or do you want a guy that's going to win you a game? I think they need to make the decision to never have Casey Bauman be in the position to lose or win them a game, period. Every single other piece of the team needs to be what's winning them games.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's not feasible. It's just not feasible.
They went to the playoffs without throwing the ball last year.
No. But my point is, who was in the position to win them and lose them games? It was still the quarterback, just wasn't in the traditional sense of the quarterback. And that's why this happens. We talked about this earlier. Why is the quarterback decision, are we having a press conference and the announcements going out, and now we're doing, 30, 45 minutes on this one guy at this one position? But if you had an offensive line battle and the guard got selected and it was this junior over that sophomore or whatever, it would be hardly even noticed. And the reason is because they are the difference maker. They're the most visible guy on the football field, and they are the most hands-on guy on the football field, touching the ball essentially every single play. So we all know how important the quarterback is, but that's why it gets this sort of attention.
Certainly. I just think that if you put a game plan together for Casey Bauman to win you a game, that's a flaw. Because I think that gives him a chance to lose a game. I think with the athletes Montana State has, realistically, truly, with Travis Johnson on the roster, Troy Anderson on the roster, Kevin Cassis on the roster, the offensive line you have in place, the defense you have, you could feasibly only have Casey Bauman take half the snaps in a game even. He could be on the sidelines straight up, not even in the game for 20 to 25 snaps a game. Montana State, the way that they're built and the way they've operated the last couple of years, everybody always says, oh, if you play Travis Johnson at quarterback, if you play Chris Murray at quarterback, everybody knows you're running the option. So what? Stop them.
Right. Yeah,
they've been 1 or 2 in the league in rushing for the last 3 years without being able to throw the ball.
No, it's a good point.
So, if Bauman's not in the game at all, Troy Anderson's in the game, Travis Johnson's in the game, that's the game plan where then it's not all on Bauman. If you expect Bauman to go out there and throw 45 passes, you're just tripping. That's not what you need to be doing if you're the Cats.
It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. It is the Montana Football Hour, the first hour of every show every Monday. It's brought to us by Lithia Ford of Missoula. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll hear from Matt Miller, the offensive coordinator, who is obviously very tied up in this decision as well. Continue next.
Alpine Touch has mastered keeping your taste buds happy by spicing up anything you throw on the grill this summer. Now, let Alpine Touch keep your mouth watering whenever you want their new sunflower shooters. Their new jumbo sunflower seeds seasoned with Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasonings. And Alpine Touch sunflower shooters will be available all summer at every Osprey baseball home game. Available at retail locations around the state and online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com. The Polaris Factory Authorized Clearance is here. The world's best-selling off-road lineup is priced to move with financing as low as 3.99% and rebates up to $3,500. Live life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. The best deals of the year are happening now. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $3,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Factory Authorized Clearance. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Kurtz Polaris is now showcasing all of the new 2020 Polaris off-road vehicles. To be the first to get a great deal on brand new state-of-the-art Polaris vehicles at Kurtz Polaris. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Rebates valid in U.S. through 9/30/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Financing offer valid on 2015s through 2020s. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Coach Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. Fall camps for college football teams across Montana are underway, including for the Montana Grizzlies and Montana State Bobcats. The Grizz moved practice around a little bit this weekend to avoid the thunder and lightning storms that came through. They were big time this weekend. Gracious mercy. had no scheduled scrimmages this season, while Montana State had their first scrimmage on Saturday. The closed session lasted about 75 plays and included 3 touchdown runs by sophomore Isaiah Ifanse. Camps around the Frontier Conference also opened up over the weekend. The big news coming out of Montana State, Casey Bauman has been slated to start at quarterback for Montana State.
The Missoula Osprey fell 3-2 at the Orem Owls on Sunday night, dropping to 8-5 in the second half and into a first-place tie with Billings for the Pioneer League North lead. An 8-game road trip continues for the 4-game set upcoming against the Ogden Raptors. First pitch scheduled 7 p.m. Monday night.
With a chance to advance to the American Legion Baseball World Series on the line, the Bozeman Bucks gave up 4 runs in the top of the 10th and could not rally back, falling 5-1 to Idaho Falls. Bozeman did not lose a postseason game on the way to the Montana-Alberta Class AA Championship or into the semifinals in the Northwest Regional. Bozeman's season ends, however, with consecutive losses.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound. Find Tootell and Nuanez on the World Wide Web at 1029ESPN.com, Facebook/ESPN Missoula. And for the best Big Sky coverage in the state of Montana, go to SkylineSportsMT.com. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Coulter Nuanez.
What would you say? You want to sing, Colt? You want to do a little karaoke for the people here?
No, thank you.
Dave, bro.
Cheer up, Buttercup. It's
2
a little
weeks.
Dave.
Yeah, tell him about it, Tommy.
Come
2
on.
weeks.
Tommy's not allowed to talk anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, if only you had the right to set that up. You don't.
Between Tommy and I and you're the only one who has no control over what's going on the show. I got a couple of buttons. He's got all the buttons. He can shut this whole thing down.
Do it.
That's it. Just shuts it off. It's done. It's Tootell Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio. It is the Montana Football Hour. You're in the middle of it. Brought to us by Lithia Ford of Missoula. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway, Missoula Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. Again, Casey Bauman, the big news out of Montana State, will be the starter at quarterback, the redshirt freshman going to take the reins under center or behind center or however they decide to set it up. Or perhaps, as Coulter alluded to, perhaps on the sidelines quite a bit while they run various versions of Wildcat and Wing T and everything else they got over there with all the different guys they got to run various looks, various sets, and so forth. Matt Miller was promoted to offensive coordinator middle of the year last year. Certainly Montana State was better offensively in the second half of the year than they were in the first half of the year with Matt Miller as the OC. He enters this year for the first time as the incumbent OC and his first kind of major personnel decision of his young career. So let's hear what Matt Miller, the offensive coordinator, had to say about this decision and how he came to it with Jeff Choate.
I think he's done a really nice job from spring to summer to fall camp of just understanding schematically what we're trying to get done, and then taking what the defense gives us, making good decisions with the ball in his hand, having that demand and command in the huddle where guys are going to follow him every time he's calling that football play. In terms of some of the intangible stuff he has on the field, he's got a really live arm, and he can make some of those throws down the field. That's going to help us be a more dynamic offense, be able to run the ball and take our vertical shots.
You talk about just his growth from the mental standpoint, understanding the whole offense.
Yeah, and so it's just crazy because sometimes I got to remember he's still just a second-year freshman. And it's a testament to him for putting the work in, being in my office a lot in the offseason. Let's just talk football. Let's talk how defenses want to defend us. Let's practice calling the play in the huddle. Let's watch our day one install over and over and over again, where it's just come second nature to you, where you can get up there and run this position meeting. And I think a lot of it's just his work ethic. He came in, he wore me out, and it's obviously paying dividends for him right now.
As a guy who came in last year as an interim OC and now running into the OC position as a full-time, how important is it to have a quarterback at the helm that you can really know who your guy is? And how much does that help the offense as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's big time. I think sometimes when you don't have that gunslinger who can do that, you kind of put some handcuffs on yourself. Now we got a whole bunch of quarterbacks right now who are understand what we're trying to do schematically, it just opens up the whole playbook. You can do a lot more stuff with those guys because you feel comfortable with them understanding what we're trying to get done. So it's a lot more fun to coach because we're not thinking, we can't do that, can't do this. It's like, all right, how can we get to the same stuff just different ways because our guys can handle it.
Can you talk about just the difficulty maybe of the decision, how tough it was?
Yeah, it was a difficult decision, and we're pretty fortunate to have that type of difficult decision. And it could have probably gone either way. And Tucker and Casey are both good friends off the field, which is even more important to me in terms of how this team goes forward. I know Tucker's going to prepare like he's the starter, and he's going to push Casey, and they're going to bounce ideas off each other, and they're going to keep sharpening their swords together, which is going to make us a better football team collectively. And so, yeah, it was a tough decision, but it was a healthy conversation we had yesterday, and they both understand the plan, and I think good things are going to come for them.
You've been around football for so long. Can you talk to Casey's physical skills and maybe think of something in football where you've seen someone like him? Is there anyone you can compare him to?
There's a lot of comparisons. This is body stature. Being a Montana guy, he reminds me of the stature of Brock Osweiler. Brock had a strong arm, very football savvy. Kind of had the same moxie as Casey, and I knew Brock because we're about the same age, and so just knowing his personality and Casey's personality is very similar. But Casey's still got a long ways to go in his development. I'm not saying he's a Brock Osweiler type of talent yet, but I think he has all the potential in the world. If he keeps working like he's working, that good things will come his way.
So there you go. Look, it's an obvious comparison when you talk about tall Montana quarterbacks. Brock Osweiler would be kind of the guy that you go to. When it comes to, the moxie or the mentality, I don't know about, I don't know Casey Bauman at all. I have no idea what he's like, what his personality is, or what have you. But certainly from, 6'7" and slinging it around. And you and I, you've watched Montana State more than I have, but I have watched them, as much as I'm able, as often as I'm able to. And, if you asked me, coming in, Troy Anderson, Tucker Rovig, Casey Bauman, or other at quarterback, I would have told you Casey Bauman. He has the highest ceiling at the quarterback spot, and he has it with the struggles that Tucker Rovig has had. I think you go in there and you go, hey, let's make it happen with this guy, and maybe he's the long-term solution, and all of a sudden 4 years of upheaval. Maybe this is the platform for 4 years of absolute certainty at quarterback. Now we understand injuries and all that stuff. It's a guarantee. It's a when, not an if situation. But maybe this is a turning point in the history, at least of Jeff Choate as the head coach of Montana State, where you look back and go, hey, that day, that Monday in August, when they made that decision, that opened everything up for what was to come in a good way for Montana State's football future.
I have not seen Brock Osweiler throw a football live since he was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. I did watch Brock Osweiler throw a football live many times. He's the exact same grade as my brother. They competed against each other throughout their whole lives. The two best, there was 3 AAU teams that were like really, really good in Montana. The one from Missoula that had my brother and a bunch of his boys on it, and the one from Kalispell that had Brock Osweiler and a couple of the other. Ben Cutler was a really good player on that team who went on to be a star at Carroll. And the team from Great Falls that had Josh Eustace on, the Great Falls Select.
I'll bet that team was pretty good.
People forget, man, Brock Osweiler was way better than Josh Eustace in high school at basketball. Now, I'm not talking a little bit better, way better than Josh Eustace in high school.
Was he headed to Gonzaga to
play
basketball?
He was verbally committed from his freshman year on.
Yeah.
So let's take a little tangent. That was interesting that Matt Miller compared Brock Osweiler and Casey Bauman personality-wise. I don't think that's accurate. I don't know Casey Bauman well. He's not like Brock Osweiler. What the persona and the sort of disliked guy that Brock Osweiler has become, that's actually not new. It's ironic because
if
Brock
you talk
Osweiler,
to anybody who was around Brock Osweiler, the athlete back in the day, it wasn't a lot of love.
Brock Osweiler was a freshman when I was he was a freshman when my best friend Paul was a senior. I was a grade out of high school. But I went to a game and I watched Brock Osweiler. He used to say this to all sorts of people. He said, "Someday you'll be watching me on TV." He used to always say that to people when he was in ninth grade. Mm-hmm. So he was a petulant little guy back then, too.
Also accurate.
It's also right. He made it happen. I mean, $75 million don't lie. You can say whatever you want about Brock Osweiler. $75 million does not lie.
Mm-hmm.
But
it might lie a little bit. Actually.
But it's ironic because you think Brock Osweiler is from Kalispell, Montana. Well, he's not actually from Kalispell, Montana. His dad's from Spokane. He just grew up in Kalispell. But Brock Osweiler, although he's from a quote-unquote rural place, had an unbelievably high level of exposure. He was the anointed athlete of Montana from his 8th grade year on, because he was 6'7" when he was in 8th grade. I mean, the kid got an offer at Gonzaga's basketball camp going into high school and committed. And then when Dennis Erickson, former Montana State quarterback, who then went up to Arizona State, when he first caught wind of Osweiler, then all of a sudden Osweiler was getting recruited by everybody in the country. Bobby Bowden came to Flathead, the kid at Kalispell. How crazy is that? Bobby Bowden from Florida State was in Kalispell, Montana to recruit Brock Osweiler. That is a world away from where Casey Bauman's at. Casey Bauman's from Everson, Washington. He's from the Nooksack Valley. He's from northwestern Washington in the middle of nowhere. The guy played an even smaller level of high school than you would compare to AA in Montana. He got seen by no one. He was recruited by nobody. And after he had signed with Montana State, he went to the Northwest Elite Camp in Seattle, and he got awarded the Top Gun at that camp. He was there with guys that were signed to Washington State. I mean, the Sermon kid at Washington, who's made all sorts of waves. Casey Bauman was rated as a higher guy than the Sermon kid. And Jake Sermon is considered, a 4-star recruit who's the future for the Washington Huskies someday, if he can find his, footing, because he contemplated transferring in the offseason. That's here nor there. But Casey Bauman is way more of a diamond in the rough than Brock Osweiler ever was. The other thing I'll say is, I have not seen Brock Osweiler throw a ball live in person with my own eyes in 10 years. But when Brock Osweiler was 18 and Casey Bauman was 18, Casey Bauman has a stronger arm. He does. He has a stronger arm. It's crazy to say. And I'm not saying he's a better quarterback. I'm not saying he's more accurate. Just in terms of the velocity that the ball comes off of Bauman's hands it's as strong of an arm as I've ever seen in the Big Sky Conference. Seriously, bar none. Period. And I think that's why you have to roll with the guy. I also think what Matt Miller said there, you need to be able to build your offense around a guy. I think that's why you have to make a decision. I think that's why this is going to be essential. But I was going through thinking about tall quarterbacks. Casey Bauman is going to be the tallest quarterback tied for in the history of the Big Sky Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Brady Gustafson's the other former Montana Grizzly, the only other 6'7" guy. I was going through other 6'6" or taller quarterbacks.
Is Dalton Snead on the list?
And it's not a who's who by any means. It's a what could have been by a lot of means. Ryan Mallett, Sean Mannion, John Skelton. Matt Schaub was pretty darn good. Jamarcus Russell, huge bust. Joe Flacco's the best of the bunch by far. Paxton Lynch, at this point, a bust. Mike Glennon, at this point, a bust. Brock Osweiler. I mean, at this point, you got to say it's probably kind of a bust. So there hasn't been a ton of success at the highest level of football for guys that are the tallest of quarterbacks. But I also think that what Choate said there in that interview in the first segment about how Bauman runs better than you think, he does. Now, I was saying this at practice the other day to some observers. As far as guys that are 6'7", 230 that can throw the ball like Casey Bauman can and can run like he can, you're talking 10 or 15 guys on earth like that.
Right.
Straight up. And again, how is this going to translate? How does he handle when Weber State's running fire zone blitzes at him? How is he going to handle when he gets smacked in the back against Texas Tech? I mean, he hasn't got hit in 2 years. How's he going to handle getting smoked?
First game and it's 170 degrees. I heard 170. Huh? That's pretty hot.
Yeah.
Coulter, we talked about this in light of the defense last week, talking about why do defenses give up points? Not because they can't make the play, but because they make a mistake.
Yep.
Often. You could have Lawrence Taylor out there running around if he's running the wrong direction because he gets, he makes a poor read. It doesn't matter who he is. That is also the case here. So when you look at all of the things that you see with your eyes when you watch him throw, when you watch him move around, obviously the measurables and all of that stuff, what it comes down to for him is what happens when it's a fire sale blitz and it's Weber State giants coming downhill at you. What is your poise? What is your courage, if I might use the word in that instance? And just frankly, what is your ability to be able to get the mental reps to slow it down? Every quarterbacks talk about this all the time. That every level of ascension that you go through, the game moves so much faster than it was at the previous level. And can you get to a point where all of a sudden it slows down for you and you're able to see it and run through the progressions, the mental progressions, in a timely fashion, and make the correct throw to go with the accurate throw and that. And also it's on Jeff Choate and Matt Miller, right, to create an offense that will allow Casey Bauman to be as successful as he can possibly be, given that stuff. Because, again, if this came down to simply a physical, gifts and potential, there's not even a question. But will he be able to get out there and make the right throw and make the right play? And if you can, then it doesn't matter if you're 5'10" or 6'10". Like, that is the key to the quarterback position. Being able to make the throw, then, the big throws, that's an added bonus.
Very few of the guys with the strongest arms in NFL history became the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. And very many of the guys with not great arms at all. I mean, Tom Brady has a pretty good, but not incredibly outrageous arm. Joe Montana does not even really have that good of an arm. Joe Montana's just a phenomenal decision maker. Peyton Manning, he spin it, but he's not Brett Favre. Favre's the one guy who's like.
Well, there's been a couple. Favre, Elway.
Yeah, totally. But there's also been there's also been Jay Cutler and Jamarcus Russell and Jeff George and guys that can throw the ball. I mean, Matt Stafford probably has the best arm in the league right now. Mahomes has the best arm ever. So let's make no mistake.
Matt Stafford,
Matt Stafford has a hose, and Matt Stafford is just kind of a middle of the road quarterback.
Okay, it is Tootell and Nuanez. It is the Montana Football Hour, brought to us by Lithia Ford. Quick break. And we'll move from Montana State to the University of Montana, talk about some of the intriguing guys that we think you should look for as well. And I also want Coulter to flesh out his Dennis Erickson stuff as far as this decision goes a little bit more as well. Hey, Montana Football Hour, as mentioned, brought to us by Lithia Ford of Missoula. This Saturday at Lithia Ford, celebrate a decade of giving at the High Five Tour 2019. Come see and sign a message on the famous High Five Tour Ford F-150 Raptor, thanking our country's wounded heroes. That's Saturday, the 17th. That's this Saturday from 4 to 8 p.m. You can go sign the truck for our country's wounded heroes. Wounded Warriors Family Supports High Five Tour is a road trip across America thanking our country's military families. The tour benefits WWFS's veteran programs. Wounded Warriors Family Support has earned Charity Navigator's highest 4-star rating year after year. This year's truck will be added to the Vietnam War veteran specialist Jack Gill. He's who's going to get this truck. So visit the high5tour.com. So head on down to Lithia Ford, Missoula. That's Saturday from 4 to 8 to thank our country's wounded heroes. Lithia Ford of Missoula on Brooks, across from Walmart.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at canyonrivergolfclub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Hey folks, Ryan Tootell here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate.
More bedrooms, a big yard, better commute. Whatever your reason to buy a new home, it's the right reason. In a tough housing market, the smartest thing you can do is pre-qualify for a loan before you start looking. Farmer State Bank makes it easier than ever to start the loan process with online checklists, forms, and calculators. Your dream home is out there. Get started today at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
What do you get when you mix every NFL preseason game, cold beer, and the best wings in Missoula? The Desperado Sports Tavern. The Desperado is Missoula's premier Southside sports tavern. With 32 HD TVs, there's not a chance you'll miss a second of every NFL preseason game. It's time to start watching your favorite players and building your fantasy team at the Desperado. That's cold beer, NFL preseason, the best wings in Missoula, and you at the Desperado Sports Tavern. Located on Russell, across from the Y.
Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
Continue in the Montana Football Hour, which we do the first hour of every show every Monday. I said that it's hard for people to understand what I meant when I said that. Not every show. Every Monday show. You get it. You start the week with it. Tootell Nuanez, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Colter, tell the people again, just more clearly, the Dennis Erickson influence of this, just quickly.
Well, Dennis Erickson won 3 Big Sky championships as a quarterback at Montana State in the late 1960s, and then launched what became one of the great coaching careers in the history of college football at Montana State. He was a graduate assistant for Jim Sweeney back in the early 1970s, and then his career basically led him to become an absolute innovator with the single-back offense during his time at the University of Idaho, and he parlayed that success then to having gigs at Washington State, Wyoming, and then eventually Miami when he had top-level talent, 2-time national champion at Miami. But Dennis Erickson won Pac-12 Coach of the Year at 3 different schools in 3 different decades. And it's as Jeff Choate said the other day, to be able to reach kids from that many generations and to do that at schools like Washington State and Arizona State that aren't necessarily the Pac-12 powers. They're not the USCs of the world. They're not, even the Washingtons or Oregons of the world. To be able to do it at Oregon State, Washington State, and Arizona State is darn impressive, especially considering the decades and times that he did it. He's a great coach. But he obviously recruited Brock Osweiler, so he has familiarity with tall quarterbacks. Derek Anderson was another one of Dennis Erickson's products, and Derek Anderson is a solid,
he's like decades long.
I mean, he's been in the NFL forever, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when I talked to Dennis Erickson at practice last year when Casey Bauman had just arrived, he said, I could tell you right now, watch this kid for 15 minutes, that's a Pac-12 miss. No idea how he can read defense or anything like that, but the way he's built, how he throws it, it's a miss. So he believed in Bauman's talent. But Montana State, I know Matt Miller has definitely confided in Dennis Erickson a little bit. Dennis Erickson was at practice all week last week. And I know that he was talking to the coaches and kind of telling them what his opinion was.
Well, why would he be there if he wasn't going to, do that? But that's interesting that Dennis Erickson was on campus there for the week and, observing all of it, but presumably specifically quarterbacks. So it's good insight.
Mm-hmm.
Colter, let's talk a little bit about the University of Montana. And as we get closer to August 31st, can't get here fast enough, about some guys who are not necessarily new to the program, but maybe new that are going to be on the field for the University of Montana that you think, are going to be guys to watch. Gabe Sulser played a lot last year, but obviously he's a guy that I think a lot of is on people's radar and, unbelievably fast, exciting kid to watch. Garrett Graves, I think there's a lot of questions about how much he's going to play and how he is going to be used in this, what will be his redshirt freshman season. But there's those are just a couple. There's a couple of transfers as well. Who are the guys that you think we should be paying attention to for the University of Montana that maybe we haven't had a chance to see heretofore?
Here's my top 10 guys. I'll count them down from 10 to 1.
Of course.
Number 10, Cordell Pilons.
Okay.
He's a junior college transfer from Arizona, and he was here in the spring. He looked good, but he's looked really good so far in fall camp. He could solidify the interior of Montana's offensive line. Number 9, Braxton Hill, kid out of Anaconda, Montana, who gray-shirted, had a good spring, had a tremendous offseason. He's weighing 225 pounds. I had to double-check my roster because he looks so good. He's put on about 20 pounds. Running well, looking good, could be a contributor at outside linebacker. And the thing that's interesting about him is as a gray shirt, you actually delay your eligibility. So technically a true freshman, even though he sat out last season. Number 8, Cole Grossman, the other gray shirt. Cole Grossman was a guy that was recruited heavily as a wide receiver / tight end combo guy. Tremendous athlete, about 6'5", runs well. Well, they switched him to defense, and he's running with the ones as that kind of hybrid Leo outside linebacker spot. His length is unbelievable. His athleticism is unbelievable. If he could learn the nuances of playing defensive football, he could be a really special guy at that spot because of his frame. Number 7, I got Marcus Knight, the junior college running back. We've talked about him extensively on this show. We saw him during spring as well, but I think he needs to be a contributor at least for Montana in the run game for that to get going a little bit. Number 6, Corbin Walker. He's a true freshman. And he, to me, is the most talented true freshman of the defensive guys on the roster. He's really fluid. He's really competitive. He's really fast. And I still think, I know that Justin Calhoun and Darian Nash had better seasons than people maybe thought they could last year. But Bobby Hauck could be the first to tell you. He said it before practice the other day. He said, we couldn't cover people like we needed to last year still. If we can, he said, the rest of the defense is quote unquote going to be pretty salty. And I think that if Corbin Walker can give them at least depth, but maybe even more than that on the outside, that could be pretty big for Montana. Number 5, I got Mikal Tolliver. He's the transfer from Hawaii, cornerback. Same deal, same analysis. Just he's a guy that has a little bit more experience. He's a former 3-star guy who was recruited by a bunch of teams in the Big Sky, and he was hurt at Hawaii last year. But a fresh start, that's never hurt anybody. So we'll see how he does. Moses Mallory was a guy that you thought maybe could change the complexion of the entire offense for Montana, the junior college offensive lineman. I thought so too. I thought his tape was very impressive. He is significantly bigger and more overweight than I thought he was going to be when he got here. I mean, you don't want to be too mean about it, but I mean, the kid needs to lose some weight. He's too big. I mean, he is enormously big. He is gigantic. But if he can, you know, he hasn't been in a program because Arizona dropped junior college football. So even though he had this sort of from last season until he reported, there was no football program to speak of that he was a part of. So, you know, maybe he just gets back into a college football training program and he gets back into the shape he needs to be in. But either way, if he can be what his tape showed he was, that could also be a big boon for the interior offensive line. And then probably the guy that's a surprise of this list, all 3 of these guys, same position, all 3 of these guys I saw at the exact same time. We were at practice the other day and I said, hey, you said we got to go. And I said, hey, give me 5 minutes. I got to run over here. I just got to put eyes on Joe Babros and Mason Vineyard, the two two FBS drop-downs. Mason Vineyard's from Washington State. Joe Babros is from NC State. So I ran over to watch the D-line just for a minute. And Mason Vineyard is all of the 6'5", 230 pounds he's listed at. He is long. He's lean. He looks great. He runs well. Very athletically built. If he can make himself play like he looks,
look out.
Look out. He's good. Joe Babros looks just like I thought he was going to look. He is that. I don't know what it is about Mission Viejo, but I've covered no less than 4 DNs from Mission Viejo that just have the crazy tats, like the up and down sleeve. Mm-hmm. But like when you're 6'4", 260, and you got that arm in the dirt, you're like, wow, that's pretty. That's really intimidating. So those 2 guys both look good, and they're both among my top guys, newcomers to watch. But the number one guy that popped to me was when I went over to look at those 2. I did a triple take on my roster. I said, who's 59? Well, it's Milton Mamula. Milton Mamula was a guy that came in here with sort of a crazy story. He was getting recruited by a bunch of FBS schools, but then he got hurt. His dad is Chris Mamula. Chris Mamula was one of the first combine freaks, one of the first guys that went to the NFL combine and just blew up. You know, he was a good player at Boston College, but then he went to the combine and, you know, runs a sub 4.7 40. He's got 35-inch vertical. He's pounding out 35 reps on the bench. And he was the 7th overall draft pick by the Philadelphia Eagles. Injury-riddled career, but it lasted for 7 years. But he got to know Tim Houck during that time because Tim Houck was playing with the Eagles. So then when Mamula's recruiting dropped off after he had the season-ending knee injury his senior year, Tim Houck calls Bobby, says, hey, you need to look at this kid. Bobby starts recruiting him to San Diego State, then gets the Montana job, brings him to Montana. Well, Mamula, his shoulder injury was so bad last year that even in his mugshot on the UM website, he was wearing a sling. So he obviously was not even allowed to take the sling off really for anything. Well, I walked up, though. The kid is equally as swole as Joe Abros. I mean, the kid is muscled up. I did not watch him do any sort of drill, but I had a triple take on my roster because I said, who is that physical specimen? And he's starting to look much more like his dad, which I think is a really, really good thing. And I think the roster has him up at 235 pounds now. And so coming out of high school, he was a guy that I thought had unbelievable upside. And if he could get healthy and stay healthy, which has obviously been an issue, he missed most of his senior year and most of his first year of college. But if he can get healthy and stay healthy, that could be a guy that could really make some noise. He could be at least a rotational guy, but maybe a guy that really even competes for some significant reps up front on defense.
I remember when Montana recruited, him, and you go, well, Episcopal High School in Pennsylvania, like, how is this thing going? And then you find out, his dad. Okay, Tim, how can you kind of put that together? And a guy who, he was recruited by Michigan, right?
Yes.
To go play in Ann Arbor at one point. And so, look, a lot of things go a lot of different ways. And, if injuries, play obviously a big role of that in football. But again, the upside that he brings is significant to the University of Montana. There's no doubt about it, and has the pedigree to go with that as well. So it'll be really he'll be a great one to keep your eyes on. Coulter, thank you, sir. Very well done.
A ton of those guys transfer. So to me, the biggest factor then is how do they compete for spots and how do they fit into the fabric of the team? Because you don't transfer unless you think you're going to play. But that's one thing that Jeff Choate has done by and large pretty well at Montana State is make sure that the transfers know that it's not a guarantee you're going to play.
Right.
And if you're a transfer at Montana State that is entitled, you've been out the door.
Yeah.
And so we'll see how these guys react. But all the transfers that they brought in fill positions of need, certainly. And all of them, by and large, are pretty darn talented as well.
Tootell and Nuanez thus concludes this week's version of the Montana Football Hour. The Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. Again, drop by on Saturday and sign the truck for the Wounded Warriors Project from 4 to 8 at Lithia Ford of Missoula. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, hour number 2. Before we go, though, I want to give something away to everybody. In about 25 minutes, we are scheduled to chat with Chad Prather. Chad Prather is coming to Missoula tomorrow night. He'll be at the Wilma tomorrow night, and we're looking forward to having him on the show. But until then, we got tickets for you to tomorrow's show. 2 tickets right now, 329-1899. 329-1899. Give us a call, and you can get yourself a pair of tickets free of charge because we like you to go see Chad Prather tomorrow night at the Wilma. What's going on Hard Knocks? We got to break this thing down because everything that matters in the preseason of the NFL happens on that show. Talk about that and AB next.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, pump it up, pump it up.
Summer is more fun with a cold beverage at your side. Stop into Town Pump and pick up refreshing Pepsi and Coke products, 12 packs for only $4.99. Complete your picnic with Calypso Lemonade, 2 for $3.33. Well stocked and ready for you. Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey Hey, everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you make a recovery. You'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. Hey y'all, Ryan Tootell here. ESPN Radio and Widmer Brothers Brewing are teaming up to broadcast Tootell and Nuanez from all over Missoula.
All summer long, register at select locations to win tickets when the Grizz take on the Oregon Ducks. On August 15th, the live broadcasts roll on with Tootell and Nuanez broadcasting live from Paradise Falls.
That's right, 4 to 6 this Thursday afternoon at Paradise Falls. Come on down, watch the show, enter for your chance to win tickets to the Grizz Oregon Duck football game, and drink $100 of free Widmer Brothers Hefeweizen.
Tootell and Nuanez live from Paradise Falls on Thursday afternoon.
Ronald McDonald House of Missoula is proud to announce Food Truck Fridays every Friday this summer from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Stop by the Ronald McDonald House for lunch from a rotating selection of Missoula's favorite food trucks, including Sonny's Original Cheesesteaks, Big Sky Grub Truck, Bistro Street Food, River City Eats, and more. A percentage of all proceeds go to Ronald McDonald House and ultimately to helping children and families in times of need. Food Truck Fridays at Ronald McDonald House, 3003 Fort Missoula Road.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news. Fall camps for college football teams across Montana are underway, including for the University of Montana and Montana State. The Grizz had to move practice around over the weekend to avoid the thunder and lightning storms that besieged the area. UM has no scheduled scrimmages this fall, while Montana State held their first scrimmage Saturday. The closed session lasted about 75 plays and included 3 touchdowns by sophomore Isaiah Ifonse. Out of that scrimmage today, Montana State head coach Jeff Choate announcing that Casey Bauman will be the starting quarterback for the Cats heading into the season.
Missoula Osprey fell 3-2 at the Orem Owls on Sunday night, dropping to 8-5 in the second half and into a first-place tie with Billings for the Pioneer League North lead. An 8-game road trip commences with a 4-game series upcoming against the Ogden Raptors, starting tonight. First pitch scheduled for 7 p.m.
With a chance to advance to the American Legion Baseball World Series on the line, the Bozeman Bucks gave up 4 runs at the top of the 10th and could not rally back, falling 5-1 to Idaho Falls. Bozeman did not lose a postseason game all the way through the Montana-Alberta Class AA Championship and into the semifinals of the Northwest Regional. Bozeman, however, did end with consecutive losses.
And finally, number 1 bull rider in the world is from Montana. Volberg native Jess Lockwood jumped from number 3 to number 1 thanks to a win over the weekend.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound. Stream at 1029ESPN.com. The stream is available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
I hear a call of a lifetime ring. Felt the need to get up for it.
Welcome back, hour number 2. Chad Prather going to join us here in about 20 minutes. Stick around for that. We'll give away more tickets to his show tomorrow night. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour of the show, check it out on the podcast. The podcast available all the time. It's available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, and it is available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. If you want to call, 329-1899 is the phone number. 329-1899, that phone number. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. And if you would like to listen on the stream, well, it's easy enough. The stream is available on the website, 1029ESPN.com. You can listen on all of the devices. It's there thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Before we get into what is going on in the NFL, on Hard Knocks, AB's feet, AB's helmet, Ezekiel Elliott's contract, Dak Prescott's contract, whatever we can get to, we got to talk to Tommy Evans for a moment. Now, Tommy's sitting back there on the board today, guiding the ship hither and yon, and he's got to be working through what is one of the most remarkable sort of personal instances of perseverance that I'm aware of, because thanks to the weather that we had this weekend, your new house apartment that you've moved into flooded, and so you had to attend to that. And also, as we know, the fair just rolled through town. So more importantly, that meant 23 and a half hours a day of coin dozer for Tommy as he went over there and tried to collect coins at the fair, which he does every single year. If you're new to the show and you don't know Tommy's history with the fair, every coin that this kid comes across over the course of an entire calendar year goes into a fair jar. And that entire sum of money, which is no small sum over the course of that accrual, goes into the coin dozer machine and has been cashed out in the form of, a PS4? And even to the point of him being barred from playing coin dozer because he was beating the system with the coin dozer machine. So, Tommy, could we have the fair update 2019 on what happened with you this year at the fair and the coin dozer?
Yeah, my 12-year-old little brother is loving his Xbox 360.
Get out of here.
It was a great time. Money well spent. Got really soaked. I think I'm coming down with a cold.
I do, too. I don't like this at all.
Yeah, But, it was good. It was really good. I didn't recognize any of the staff members from the past, so I felt very kind of under the radar, so to speak.
Yeah, they didn't know what was happening to them, and the fact that just because you're not there doesn't mean you're not still playing, because you're employing children to go put the coins in for you to perpetually own the machine and collect the chips.
I wouldn't say employee, but it's like, look, you guys, I'm no gamer, but, if we come across the biggest grand prize in the box, you guys might have to help me play it. You have to help me set it up. Yeah, I can plug it in the HDMI cord. Yeah. Okay, well, take this $20 and go get yourself a red Solo cup full of coins. And if there isn't a blue coin, which you got to collect the big blue wooden chips. If there's no blue wooden chip and you're playing that thing, forget about it. You're gone. You're turning in the coins. You're not playing this thing. You have to get the blue coins. And look, you get the right people together. You got to commit. It's a slow and steady thing. You end up with an Xbox 360.
How many blue coins do you need? How many blue chips do you need to win an Xbox?
This year, the price was set at $300. And after you show up a time or two and you bring the worker a nice ice cream cone, or in this case, a corn dog for lunch. Oh, I'm so hungry. All right, well, hey, I had to go get some money from the ATM, but hey, I thought you could use a corn dog. Oh, thanks a lot. And then, clunk, 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 you find yourself with 4 or 5 blue chips, and they just happen to be right at the end. There are ways to make this fall into your favor.
Now, the other thing, too, and this is the real sort of, I think, the trick to the game that people don't appreciate, okay, if we can get real nuanced about it, which clearly you have, is on the one hand, people are going, well, you keep throwing $20 worth of coins into the machine, and okay, you got the Xbox after a week, but how much money did you spend? And you lost a week. You could have just gone and bought an Xbox, but no, because at some point you hit sort of critical mass with the amount of coins that the coin dozer machine can hold, and it starts kicking out the coins back to you also. So you're really just feeding its own money back to itself while knocking off the blue chips in the process. Do I have this roughly right?
Yeah, you can sort of. Well, like I said, you can get the game set up to where it's in your favor. The coins that you've purchased are being returned to you in some percentage, and if you can pile them up, if you're stacking on the same lane for a lengthy amount of time, you can dump a whole $20 worth of coins in, but eventually you'll get probably 60% of those back. So you can keep cycling and cycling, and depending on how much you're working the employee of the game with corn dogs, lemonade, perhaps some miniature tequilas from the nearby liquor store. I'm just throwing anything out. I'm just spitballing. You can find a lot of blue coins in your lane, and you keep cycling through.
Now, When you on Sunday arrive and you go in with your 300 blue coins and say, "Give me that Xbox 360 right now," what is the reaction that you receive? Is there any idea that you have been able to accrue this number of blue chips?
I think, so I've been through this twice now with the PS4 and now the Xbox 360. And both times, I have seen the look of true fear in someone's eyes.
Because they know they're only there to guard the Xbox.
They're fired.
The only thing that they have, they sold their job for a corn dog.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the tail tucks like I've never seen it tuck before. Can you come over to Dozer, row 4? You got a problem? We got a grand prize winner. Sir, we'll be right back. Please don't go anywhere. I mean, it gets really somber.
They cannot believe it. Because you know what? They got no deal. This is the one thing. They got no deal. The traveling circus, they got no deals with Nintendo, with Microsoft. They went down to the store just like every other person and bought that machine, fully intending, probably receipt in hand, to take it back at the end of the tour and get their money back.
Without a doubt. Well, that didn't happen this time. Well, we might have to go get it. We can't find it. And I said, well, when I got the PS4 before, this is kind of what happened, but I think you guys found it in your general manager's trailer. He laughed and laughed. Ha, 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 yeah, you want a PS4? And I said, no, wouldn't that be crazy? You know? And so we had a laugh.
Is the greatest 1 week every year, and you come out with all the gaming machines. And then the following year, you are identified as public enemy number 1. They don't even have a grand prize to offer. The best you can do is a mid-sized stuffed giraffe, and they won't even let you play the game.
It's true.
So it's a biannual system that's going out, and now you got the PS4, so your brother gets the Xbox 360.
Yeah, I gave him the PS. I don't use these things. I don't care about them, man. I don't want them in my house.
I'll take it.
Just for me, it's fun to, show my little brother, look, if you look closely enough at the world, you can find ways to succeed easier and better. And this is one of the ways to do it. You can work hard and save your money, sure, or you can figure out a way to get it for less and have fun in the meantime. You develop a little rapport, meet some friends, and you've got a great story to tell.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
How much money have you spent on this?
We were just under $200, including the corn dogs. So I'm into the 360, about $175.
Okay. How much did you spend on the PS4? I'm just trying to make sure you got a good deal, because you can't just go buy these things.
Yeah, but would you be able to sit here and talk about, I went down to GameStop and bought me a machine?
No, you
It'd
would
be a
not
different
be able
thing,
to.
man.
That's right.
This is so exciting to me because it's the one game that isn't 100% rigged.
It is, though. You're the only human in the world that's ever won it.
No, it's not rigged. Dude, the only requirement is that you have patience and you know how to talk to somebody and get the blue chips in your lane.
You got to start sports gambling, Tommy.
I can't.
You have to.
Because
you're the only person I know that's won any of the
360.
things.
Shall we tell the people about the new podcast coming?
What is the new
podcast? We got to have it actually created first.
No.
They can figure it out. I mean, you already just told them.
I know. Can't wait. Well, Tommy, I mean, honest to goodness, the Monday after the fair is Christmas Day for me. The fact that this has happened yet again,
dude,
is just it's too good to be
the
true.
very first time I was ever on this show as a full-time host, this had just happened.
Yes.
We've passed my 2-year anniversary.
Yes.
Thanks for remembering, boys.
Yes.
5 days ago.
Happy anniversary.
Got nothing from any of you. First of all, I had no idea what you were talking about. I didn't know Tommy at all at this point.
Yes.
The outline says coin dozier. What is that? And then Tommy starts telling the story. I'm like, this guy is so full of it. Oh my God. It's just not true.
It's 100% true.
It's crazy.
I got the photos to prove it, Coulter.
This is the guy who, out of sheer anger and vitriol, Doesn't even want the game. Last year, when they did not have it, drove to Kalispell, to the Kalispell version of the fair, to try and take them for their machine up there when it made its reappearance.
Yeah, it's true. We did go. Saw a great demo derby, too.
Does your girlfriend, is she in is this like a thing where you got to sit down and explain to her, look, here's something that I'm into. Not everybody else is into it. And if this relationship is going to work, then you got to know this about me. And she sits and she's all somber and like, oh boy, here we go. What kind of weirdness is my boyfriend about to tell me about? What kind of thing, what kind of dark secrets? And you're like, 1 week every year, 1/52nd of my entire existence is dedicated to coin dozer at the fair. And she says, well, that's fine. I like that.
She rolls her eyes and says, with zero sarcasm, Tommy, this is the stupidest. You're such a smart person. This is the stupidest thing you could ever do.
But when she sees the machine, then what?
Oh, my gosh. How did you do this?
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was fun. It's a really, really good time. And I hope that other people out there can study and learn patience to this extent, to benefit themselves as well.
Coulter, you have 60 seconds to talk about Hard Knocks or about Ezekiel Elliott. The floor is yours.
Oh, man.
Happy anniversary, by the way. Glad to have you here. What did you want for it? Do you want like a meat and cheese package?
I don't know. The only thing we all want, Gus, just affirmation and recognition. Let's talk Hard Knocks and the Raiders later. I got to get back in Ezekiel Elliott. I was just ripping him for being on his razor in Mexico, but then I really started thinking about this, did a little bit more research. Ezekiel Elliott is not only holding out for a brand new contract, but he's holding out in the midst of his rookie contract. So now, you made a comment that there's been plenty of guys that have reached the end of their rookie deal, and they've had a player option or a team option, and they've renegotiated that into a long-term deal, or they've gotten a really good contract while their rookie contract still has a year left on it. But Ezekiel Elliott has 2 years left on his contract. He's not trying to get an extension that will be added to the end of this contract. He's trying to get a new contract. He wants $15 to $20 million right now, not 2 years from now. He could sign, say he signs a 5-year, $100 million contract extension that would start then in 2021. That would be unprecedented for the money, but not unprecedented under the logistics of the contract. If Ezekiel Elliott manages to hold out and get his rookie contract wiped off the books and get a new contract, that will be precedent setting. And I think it will become the new norm for high production young running backs. And I think it's an interesting and potentially scary moment for the league, because what do we know about running backs? As the miles pile up, which it's just inevitable that it's going to happen, your value diminishes.
Yeah.
And so if you go out and Todd Gurley is a great example. But he's going to reach the end of his contract and and he already got paid. But say there's a guy like that rushes for 1,000+ yards 2 of their first 3 years, or there's a guy that just straight out the gates has a 1,500-yard season. Now all of a sudden you're holding out. You're saying, give me more. And on one hand, I agree. Maybe if you produce at that high level, maybe you do deserve more. But also, where does that put NFL teams? Because so often you're getting so much value for the guy who can be a 1,000-yard rusher while he's still on his rookie contract, rather than the $20 million a year running back who's inevitably going to wear down. So I think that there's a real tangible game-changing thing going on with Ezekiel Elliott, not just his selfishness for being in Mexico and not participating in training camp, but if he somehow gets his way when it comes to this, it's going to shift the rest of the league.
Well, we will obviously keep our eyes on it. What happens of it, what comes of it, and is this going to reach into the regular season, which it feels like to me it has the potential certainly to do. It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Quick break. We'll come back. This is going to be a fun one. Chad Prather going to join us. Chad is an internet sensation, a YouTube guy, a comedian, a country music singer, and he is also playing a show at the Wilma tomorrow night. 7 o'clock tomorrow. Doors at 7, shows at 8. Tomorrow night at the Wilma. He's going to join us, talk to us about what it is that he does as a one-man entertainer. Next.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires, or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. In western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at SelwayArmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations, just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey everybody, Ryan Tootell, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Fall camps for college football teams across Montana are underway, including in Missoula with the University of Montana and Bozeman with Montana State. The Grizz had to move practice around to avoid the thunder and lightning storms that came across western Montana this weekend, but the grind trudges on. UM had no scheduled scrimmages, while Montana State had their first scrimmage on Saturday. The closed session lasted about 75 plays and included 3 rushing touchdowns by sophomore Isaiah Ifonse. Out of that scrimmage came the announcement today that Casey Bauman will be the starting quarterback for Montana State heading into the 2019 season.
Missoula Osprey fell 3-2 at the Oromels on Sunday night. That dropped them to 8-5 in the second half and into a first-place tie with the Billings for the Pioneer League North lead. An 8-game road trip continues with a 4-game series upcoming against the Ogden Raptors. First pitch scheduled tonight, 7 p.m. can be heard right here, 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
With a chance to advance to the American Legion Baseball World Series on the line, the Bozeman Bucks gave up 4 runs in the top of the 10th and could not rally back, falling 5-1 to Idaho Falls. Bozeman did not lose a postseason game on the way to the Montana-Alberta Class AA Championship or into the semifinals Northwest Regional. Bozeman's season ends, however, with consecutive losses.
We have Chad.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound. Fast Tootell and Nuanez. All guests join the show on the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studio on ESPN Radio in Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television. Here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
You know, it is a sports show. It is ESPN Radio, for crying out loud, but sometimes it's fun to do a little something a little bit different. Such is the case now with Chad Prathers coming to Missoula tomorrow. Going to be at the Wilma. Again, doors at 7 o'clock for the show. Show is at 8 o'clock. And Chad, he's a one-man entertainer. Comedian, country music singer, and he joins us now on the Range Brothers RV phone line. Chad, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. How are you?
I am doing great, gentlemen. How are you today? I just love saying the names Tootell and Nuanez.
Well, it rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? I mean, we went through many iterations to come to that conclusion.
I probably slaughtered that. Tootell and Nuanez.
You nailed it. A lot of people do slaughter it, though. But you've gotten it. Hey, looking forward to having you in town tomorrow. And I want to know a couple of you. You live in Texas now, but you're from Georgia originally, or I have this?
Yeah, I grew up in Georgia. And went to the University of Georgia, played a little ball over there, and then about 20 years ago, I came over to Texas, fell in love with it, and it just became home to me. So, yeah, I'm in the Fort Worth area, love it. We travel all across the country. It's great being in Texas because we're right in the middle of everything. And, we can bounce around the country pretty easily rather than being on a coast. And so we're looking forward to coming up to Montana. If for nothing else, cooler weather because it's about 110 degrees here today.
Yeah, that's too warm, I must say. I mean, that's getting a little much. It's been much cooler than that here. So hopefully you'll have a slight reprieve from that. But now Georgia. Now I want to know about this because, when we watch sports, especially the SEC and the school and all that, and you go and you play ball there, and especially Georgia, I mean, there's Georgia Tech, sure, okay, Georgia State and Atlanta, but really there's no in-state rival. It's the Georgia Bulldogs. That's what you got going in Georgia. So what was it like to be there growing up? You grow up a sports fan and all that. What's that like there?
Well, back in the day, in those days, of course, I'm 46 years old now. Back in those days, you had a big rival for the longest time when I was a kid between Georgia and Clemson, which, of course, was their SEC, ACC rival. Then they didn't play again for years. And then my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, they played two games. Clemson won in 90 and Georgia won in 91. So that was a big, backup rivalry right there to come back around. Georgia Tech was a lot stronger in those days, and I hate that the ACC has kind of weakened itself in certain areas. Like, Georgia Tech, that used to be a fantastic rivalry, and it just hasn't been because, like you said, Georgia Bulldogs, they're just going to go in there and dominate. And so you've had those you haven't had the in-state rivalries. You've had the cross-state rivalries like the Florida Gators and things like that, and even that hasn't been a great rivalry in the last couple of years. What I look at is you go across the state line to a place like Alabama. Everybody in Alabama is wearing some article of clothing that either has Alabama or Auburn on it. I mean, it's cult level over there. It's crazy to watch that.
Very similar to Montana. What you're about to experience, everybody here is either wearing Montana or Montana State. It's kind of like the Auburn Alabama rivalry.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
I mean, I don't know, man. Proportionally,
I don't know. I don't know that I would go that far.
The vitriol is all the same, regardless of the number of people that are wearing the deal. Well, Chad, what have you thought of just the rise of Georgia? Because Georgia has always been good, but they've been elite the last several years since hiring Kirby Smart. That's got to be cool as an alum of the school to watch just getting back into that top 3, top 4 area.
Well, I loved, it was a good move. I think when they brought Kirby Smart in, I think it was, Mark Richt was a great guy. I just don't think Mark Richt ever had that killer instinct, and Georgia wanted that. I think Kirby Smart has enough of that in him, especially as a defensive coordinator, to come in there and put together a ball team. I was disappointed in how they performed against Texas, and I really think Georgia expected to be in the playoffs, and I don't think they deserved to be in the playoffs, but I think they were kind of disheartened with that, and they decided not to show up in that bowl game against Texas, and not to take away credit from Texas. I think Texas is back in a big way. It was kind of foretelling whenever Bevo went after Uga before the game, and I said, this is not a good omen here.
I mean, if it's going to be between an actual dog and an actual steer, it's probably not going to go the dog's way, right? I mean, that's generally the way it works.
I love the reaction of the dog. Those dogs live the life of Riley, right? That's Uga 10, I think, at this point. And he's like, all of a sudden, he's in the action. He's like, no, I'm getting out of here.
I'm done with this, no doubt. Yeah. Hey, Chad Prather joining us. He's going to be in Missoula tomorrow night at the Wilma. He does music, country music, comedy, political and cultural commentary throughout. This is a really it's a multifarious kind of act. A lot of things that go into this with you and what you've gotten into. How did you come about into this though? This iteration of what you're doing professionally. Are you from a musical family? Are you from a funny family? Like how did you come to be up in this form of entertainment?
Yes and yes. I was always on stage in some form or fashion. I even considered when I was playing sports as in a way being on stage. And so, it evolved into doing radio and then television. And then out of television during that period of time, I wound up doing, social media things that went viral in a big way. And so a friend of mine who's a comedian of a long time, he said, why don't you put that on stage and sell tickets to it? And I said, well, let's see if it'll do it. And this was a number of years ago, and folks started buying tickets and coming. And so here we are. And it's a very entertaining show. A lot of people look at it and they say, oh, it's going to be a lot of politics. It's really not. We'll refer to it simply because, it's a funny situation we're in these days. You have to laugh to keep from crying. But it's really more of an American, it really is. It's an American show. I'm happy to make, I'm an equal opportunity offender, so I'm happy to make fun of, both sides of the political spectrum. And we have a good time with that. And then we incorporate some, some funny music in with it as well. And, it works out to be about an hour and a half to 2 hour show, depending on the crowd. But I'll tell you, man, it is a funny, funny show, if I do say so myself, and folks really enjoy being a part of it. It's a blast.
When you first earn success as a performer this day and age, it's a little bit different than it used to be. It used to be sort of more of an incremental working up to being quote-unquote famous. Now, if you get on YouTube and then all of a sudden you get this moment where it goes viral, then all of a sudden you might just be famous overnight. Everybody just knows you when maybe not very many people knew you beforehand. And I know that you have been doing this for a long time, but you had that moment where one of your videos on YouTube just kind of went viral. What was that moment like for you? Was it sort of bizarre?
Well, it was, and even before the video went viral on YouTube, I had a number of videos that went viral on Facebook. We on Facebook alone, we're like at a 2 billion view mark. I mean, it's crazy how many. We'll see videos that get shared 500,000, 600,000 times, and that's crazy to me. And so for me, I told my wife, I said it was almost like we opened up the door to the neighborhood and let everybody from our neighbors come in and rummage through our underwear drawer. Because suddenly, we weren't prepared for that. It was weird the way it just exploded. And you're exactly right, because, comedians especially, they used to do the exact opposite of what I did. They would go out and do the clubs, they would do the colleges, they would do the shows, they might do a little radio and TV, then they might get into social media, then they get to do theaters, and I did the opposite. I had a built-in audience through the social media and the television stuff, and then I went and started doing theaters, which most comics don't get an opportunity to do that. I didn't have to grind through a lot of the trenches of the smoke-filled, heckle-filled, alcoholic-filled clubs, although I do a lot of them these days. I kind of got to back into it. So for me, to come in as a quote-unquote comedian, I really see myself more as a humorist and a storyteller. But I have nothing but respect for the people who do comedy. And unfortunately, you have a lot of these YouTube personalities who go out there and get on stage, and they don't do comedy. It's kind of a look-at-me moment, and I'm thankful to say that, I've evolved to the point where we definitely don't do that, because it's a real craft. And in this day and age, especially where everybody's offended by so many different things so easily, it's a significant craft to be able to do that, go in and make people laugh.
That was going to be my next question. LeBron James has a show on HBO called The Shop, and he has various other celebrities and famous people on there. But Jamie Foxx was on there a couple episodes ago, and he was talking about the evolution of just doing specifically stand-up comedy. And he was saying, it was my job for 15 years to say offensive stuff while I was on the stage. And now when I say offensive stuff, the whole internet blows up. And he's like, how am I supposed to do my job? I'm not actually being serious. I'm just trying to make you laugh. How do you kind of balance that when like you say, you're an equal opportunity offender, but I know that it's all, at the end of the day, lighthearted. You're trying to bring people together, not divide them. So how do you balance that act this day and age?
Well, I think that, as Joe Rogan said, mocking people is in the job description. And
right.
You have, I go up, and a lot of times on stage and on my podcast and things, I'll say, I'm not apologizing to anyone. Kevin Hart got into a lot of trouble over an old tweet and some gay jokes he made, and so now he's on Ellen, apologize. And I don't know who made Ellen the gay pope to absolve all of his sins, but there he is, apologizing. I'm like, Kev, don't apologize, man. Don't do that, because then that's an admission of guilt. I said, I don't care if you're white, black, fat, skinny, male, female, gay, straight. We're going to make fun of all of you. I don't care if you're politically you're on the left, you're on the right. We're going to make fun of all of you, and we're not going to apologize. And I think that's kind of the attitude you have to come into it. You know, you take a guy like Jamie Foxx and those guys, I think they were almost grandfathered in because they were doing that comedy before people decided they were so thin-skinned. So it's going to be interesting. To your point, it's going to be interesting because Netflix, I think, just paid $70 million to Eddie Murphy to come in and do a new special. And I'll tell you, if you remember the old Raw from, back in the late, Eddie Murphy translates in this day and age with his style of comedy. Going to be interesting to watch.
No doubt. That's a $70 million risk that Netflix has gone out there with on that one. No doubt. Well, one last question for you. Now, have you been to Montana before? Have you gotten up this way, whether it's professionally or just otherwise? Have you been around?
Oh yeah, on both ends. I've done a couple of shows in Bozeman, a couple of shows in Billings. I do an annual event. Well, I say an annual. Every other year, I'm up in Sydney, Montana, where you can pee into Canada. I mean, you got to take a big plane, a little plane, a kayak, and a donkey to get into that town.
Right.
But they're great people. They're great people. And so, yeah, we've got some great friends in Montana. This will honestly be the first time to Missoula, so it'll be interesting. It'll be a lot of fun. And we're going to have – I mean, it's a Tuesday night. We do a lot of random night shows like that whenever they'll have us in. And it doesn't matter if we got 100 or 1,000 or more. We have a blast with everybody that comes. So we're looking forward to a fun night tomorrow night in Missoula.
Well, Chad, we thank you so much for being on with us. Chad Prather, you can go check him out on YouTube, on Facebook, and you can see him tomorrow night at the Wilma. Again, doors 7 o'clock at the Wilma. Show is at 8, and we will give away a pair of tickets to his show as well here coming up in just a minute or so. But, Chad, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate it, and have a great show tomorrow. We're looking forward to seeing it, all right?
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you so much. Take care, guys.
You bet. Chad Prather, boys and girls. It is so interesting, right, to just all of a sudden, like, you're doing a thing, okay, so people know about it. You go to sleep, you wake up, you go to sleep again, you wake up, famous. Crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, no, it's totally crazy. I thought it was interesting he made the comment of Jamie Foxx and the kind of the late 80s, early 1990s comedians getting grandfathered in, because that's exactly how Jamie Foxx described it, too. He said, I couldn't have done what I did if I came 20 years before or 20 years after. 20 years before, you wouldn't have had an African-American man on the stage.
Right.
20 years later, I mean, right now, he's kind of going through it. He's too offensive. Right, and so, it is sort of interesting the way this whole thing has evolved to now the fact, like Chad was just saying, where everybody finds a reason to get offended by everything. And it's, I don't know. I don't know what if it's good. I don't think it's a good thing, but regardless, we'll see. Should be a fun show at the Wilma tomorrow night, though. He seems like a pretty entertaining, funny guy.
Yeah, there you go. Well, if you want to go see Chad, you know who he is, or maybe you just found out who he was, give us a call, 329-1899. We got a pair of tickets for you right now, 329-1899 to go see Chad Prather tomorrow night at the Wilma in Missoula. And you can come on even if you're out of town. Hey, easy enough drive, pretty drive coming into town, and go check it out. So we'll set that up for you right now, 329-1899. Okay, finally, Coulter is going to have an opportunity to talk about AB. He's been chomping at the bit on this. Okay, we'll get to it next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes, too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO beverages. Our expertly mixed cocktails, microbrews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey folks, Ryan Tootell, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates. Josh, do most injury accidents end up in court?
Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court through a fair negotiation with an insurance company. However, sometimes it is necessary. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair settlement. Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court with a fair negotiation with the insurance company. However, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get the right settlement for you.
It's Josh at the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Here at Florence Coffee Co., we are proud to serve the finest flavors under the big sky, like our smooth and delectable cold brewed toddy coffee. Florence Coffee's fresh brewed toddy coffee is known for its low acidity and smooth flavor. Served over ice, add your favorite flavor or an iced coffee like no other. Try one today at any of our Floco locations around Western Montana and visit us at florencecoffeeco.com.
Florence Coffee Company.
Tootell and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula. Find Tootell and Nuanez on the World Wide Web at 1029ESPN.com. Facebook/ESPN Missoula. And for the best Big Sky coverage in the state of Montana, go to SkylineSportsMT.com. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
Tootell Nuanez, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Hi, how are you? Hope you're well. We are broadcasting live.
Craig won.
Walking in the Alabama. West Broadway, Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. If you missed anything on the show, you can check it out on the podcast. Podcast available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Tommy, is iTunes still around, or have they pulled the plug entirely on that? I'm still accessing music on iTunes.
Dude, no. You don't even get to joke about this or anything. You cannot make Microsoft Word work. And now you're going to pull me out to dry because you're the only guy in the world using iTunes? No, forget about it.
It's one thing to get something to work if you have the thing. But I don't even have Word. That is the issue.
So download it?
No,
man.
It makes you pay. You got to have a password. It's like it's the dagnab Fort Knox to get Microsoft Word on your computer, and the guy who's supposed to know all this stuff just throwing me under the bus.
I'm telling you right now, you run your Dish Network subscription without problems.
That's right, because I pay for it.
Okay, yeah, so pay for Word, and then you're set.
I mean, no, I mean that's crazy. Now,
yeah, but iTunes is dead on the vine, man. It's gone for good.
If you could, while you're just sitting back there, we need to get fear inoculum into the heavy rotation on this show. Thank you.
Now tell me more about this.
Well,
you looking at Colter like you're worried you're going to get ripped apart because I'm derailing the show.
No. In fact, you listened to it earlier today and said you liked it very much.
It was nice.
Things we agreed on.
What I'm trying to learn is why is it so important to you?
Because I like the song.
Okay.
And I'm excited for the new Tool record to come out August 30th.
Colter, do you have an opinion about Tool?
He's not into it.
I am into it, actually. I just don't like watching Tool.
No, listen.
Tool's scary, man.
We've had some long discussions about this, and I respect Colter's position on this very much, and I understand it.
You have to be in the right state of mind to consume Tool.
Or the wrong one.
Right. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying.
The podcast is available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. You can go listen to it on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including iTunes.
Not for long.
I don't even want to talk about Antonio Brown because I just can't get over that Tommy Evans hates the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I don't hate the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yes, you do.
Your direct quote was that Anthony Kiedis is the most entitled, lucky musician of all time.
You know, it's a good thing you're not going to be back there that much because you are going to lose all of your trail street cred if you keep talking about music. You just keep getting it wrong. Yes,
Anthony Kiedis? Music?
Wrong.
How does that go together?
Listen to you.
Here's the thing, Tommy. This is the thing I just got to break through your skull.
Oh, for crying out loud.
This is coming from somebody that's not a radio guy to somebody that is a radio guy that works at a radio station in the trail that isn't like most radio stations.
The trail's completely unique.
It is not like radio stations. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Most radio guys play radio music. The trail plays the opposite of radio music. They play the good music.
We try.
Okay. So as someone that works specifically in that format, you have to realize that there has been quite a few acts over the last 25 years that have made both radio-ready, palatable, consumable, and by and large nauseating songs, as well as epic music. And it's why you have to listen to not the songs that are the singles or are played on mainstream radio, but the albums. And I agree that like a song like Under the Bridge by the Chili Peppers, it's a little bit overplayed. It's a little bit overdone. It's not that. It's all right. It's whatever. But go listen to that album and tell me that the Red Hot Chili Peppers aren't good. Go listen to Californication and don't listen to the singles. Listen to the whole album. It's so good.
I just think Anthony Kiedis is super weak, and I can't get past his weak sauceness.
Yeah, every song that you play during your 9.5 hours a day on the trail that is weaker than Anthony Kiedis or John Mayer, I'm going to start texting you and say, this is weaker, this is weaker, this is weaker.
Please do, because I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I'm playing this week. I don't think Anthony's got it going. I just don't get it, man. If the Chili Peppers were to start rising into fame or developing their musicianship right now, they would not make it. They absolutely would not make it because Anthony's pretty weak. There's no way.
Yeah, it's just remarkable.
Why is he weak? Because you just don't think he has a good voice?
Doesn't have a good voice.
Okay, but that's little to do with what being a frontman is.
Next to nothing.
Mick Jagger sucks at singing too.
No.
I mean, Bruce
Dylan has still got sawdust in his mouth.
Bruce Springsteen's been ham and egging it for 40 years.
Forever. No one can sing.
You want to know why Tommy is brainwashed over this?
Because he's a child.
Because he loves the Beatles.
Okay.
No, here's the thing.
Now it's
Listen. I'm giving it up to you right now, Tommy, because Paul McCartney is a phenomenal singer. Paul McCartney has a great voice. His voice is better than all those people we just named, but he still sucks.
Now, see, I disagree. No,
we're fighting.
Don't do it.
We're fighting right now. I'm coming in there and we're going to duke it out.
I'm disassociating from that comment with Coulter. I like the Beatles too. I like McCartney, and I think they're great. But also, I think that the Red Hot Chili Peppers are also great, and Pearl Jam is great, and Mumford & Sons is really good, and Tool is great. So having the greatest breadth of musical taste of anybody on the radio at this point in time on ESPN, I also get to have the final say, which is there's only a few that are actually truly not good. And I will continue to vet those out for you as we go. So
Tommy,
you can rely on me.
Tommy,
give me 15 seconds to prove my final point here. What?
Who's the greatest frontman in rock music history? Give me your top 5.
Greatest frontman in rock music history.
Give me just some of the ones that are among the greats.
Definitely Paul McCartney.
Freddie Mercury?
Freddie's definitely up there.
Okay.
I would have to say the singer of Cage the Elephant.
Oh my!
Have you seen those guys?
Cage
live?
the Elephant and not Anthony Kiedis.
Yeah.
Cage the Elephant and not Eddie Vedder.
No, Eddie Vedder's just dumb.
Tootell's done. He's tapped out for the show.
You said you were going to fight. Come on down. I mean, you said Cage the Elephant as a top 5. It's not possible.
Dude.
It's not possible.
No, that's what screwed up.
No. You are just saying this because it's great radio. You don't actually.
It's not good radio.
You're a liar.
It's horrible radio.
The
fact of the matter is, Anthony's voice on the radio is bad radio.
Oh my God,
it's horrible.
How about
man?
Robert Plant? Robert Plant has to be in there, right?
He's up there.
Chris
but he's
Cornell,
not one of the greatest.
Chris Cornell.
Nah, forget about him.
Oh, Scott Weiland.
Yeah, that guy's awesome.
Okay, there's one.
Good.
There's one we can vibe on.
Give me some Ozzy Osbourne.
Okay.
Ozzy Osbourne, who's still gargling on the bat head, is worse than Anthony Kiedis. Is better than Anthony Kiedis? I don't know.
By a long shot.
Ozzy Osbourne can't sing a lick.
He hasn't been able to talk in 30 years.
Can't speak. Give me your all-time frontman. You don't even know his name, and you said Cage the Elephant.
Yeah, because Anthony is super weak, dude. He's the most mild hot sauce of all time.
All right. 5:30 tomorrow. Top 5 frontmen in rock history from each of the three of us. Be here.
We'll get it right because Tommy won't even be here. Tommy will make an appearance. Okay.
I'm leaving this show. Goodbye.
You know what? Don't let the door hit you.
Alpine Touch.
upon your beach. And yes, my dolphin loves to teach. Behind the sun. Behind the sun. Yeah, 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 yeah. Behind the sun. The sun goes up and the sun gets down, but like the heart